We are going to get started with a masculine, feminine, and non-binary energy update. We are going to be starting right now with the masculine energy. Can I please get three cards for masculine headspace right now? We've got a transverse card coming out very quickly. We'll be utilizing the Smith-Waite Centennial deck for today's reading. 3 cards for masculine headspace right now. This is really fascinating because we're beginning today's read with the Hierophant in its transverse. Now, the reason I say that this is very interesting is due to the fact that we ended yesterday's read with this exact same card. We are working right now through unconventional approaches to frustrating circumstances or situations. We've also got the Wheel of Fortune in its reversal in combination with our 5 of Wands in its upright. There's a lot of turbulence. Okay. These cards right now. This is energetic turbulence. If I've ever seen energetic turbulence, look at the turbulence in these cards. It's wild. So let's talk a little bit about it though. I wanted to work you guys through this, right? This is a continuation of what we're potentially experiencing as it relates to continuing to move out of this new moon in Pisces. Now, one of the things that we effectively see about this is it's working through energetic overwhelm, right? It's working through a lot of things that are potentially happening. Now, the reason that we're potentially seeing that right now is due to the fact, and I was kind of talking about this, I always say this, I'm not worried about eclipse cycles. I'm always worried about what happens after them, right? Because it can sometimes feel, right? It's like the energetic drop, or like the energy of moving through or coming out of an eclipse cycle can often feel energetically exhausting, right? It potentially works us through experiences of overwhelm or frustration. But even in the context by which we're able to navigate that allows us to be able to energetically stabilize within it. Now, the reason I'm saying that as well right now has to do also with the fact that we have, I want to talk about the understanding of what we're effectively seeing. We're also working into the context of being able to find healthy balance. We've got a ton of planets right now that are in Aries. Where's Mars? Mars is in Pisces, and Mercury is in retrograde. So it's often working through, right? It's often working through modalities or experiences by which we sometimes feel we don't feel our best. But here's the thing about it, and I like to point this out. Our ability to move through circumstances with a sense of confidence is effectively how we work through things when we don't feel our energetic best, right? That is effectively what we understand is moving through circumstances by which we are able to identify and recognize how we effectively, and I want to kind of point this out, it's not even about working harder right now, it's potentially about working softer, right? The easement by which we give to ourselves that becomes an energetic blessing to those around the self. So we effectively see that for a lot of the energy right now, working through those circumstances or situations that allow the ability to energetically heal. And even in the modality by which we work through those cycles by which we're healing, we're effectively able to identify and recognize how we feel about things. And I want to describe this. Like, I feel like what often happens when we're going through energy like this is it's like sorting out, it's like working through sorting out the feelings that we haven't energetically addressed, right? It's moving through those capacities or those abilities, right? Those tender moments that help us to be able to recognize and feel energetically stronger within things. Now, the hard part that we're potentially recognizing there, and I need to kind of describe this, and this is a continuation of what we were talking about and why I feel like ultimately we see that this type of energy right now is profoundly healing, because it's helping us heal our perception to what strength means, right? And what does strength mean? Strength, right? And we've been continuing to talk about this. The difference between being warlike and warrior has everything to do with knowing one's own sense of strength, right? When someone does not know, when someone's looking to prove themselves, they often come into the modality of being warlike, right? It's the feeling of energetic insecurity that requires another to feel the need to kind of prove or show their strength against something, right? It's the modality by which the insecurity shows. And you'll often see this, right? You'll often see this with those who are energetically pugnacious, right? Those who are pugnacious are like, it's like because they're constantly afraid or worried that another person sees them weak. And so they are, because their concern outweighs the sense of stability of themselves, right? The understanding of who they know themselves to be. Warriors effectively understand, right? Warriors have that sense of energetic presence and stability, right? It's not the modality by which you feel like you need to prove anything to anyone, because you rest firmly within the center of the self. So that's why we often see that those who are centered is what we identify as warrior energy, because often, like, the demarcation point that you recognize with a warrior energy is not feeling the need to prove oneself to anybody except, right, except one person, right? Warriors only prove themselves to one person, and one person only. And that is the person that they see in the mirror every day, right? The observation of being able to excel and exceed one's own expectations that allow for the concept of tackling each day and leaving it better than one finds it. So we see that that's a lot of the energy here. And I feel like I want to describe it. I feel like a lot of this energy is activating. It's activating warrior energy. And why is it activating warrior energy? Because, and that's what I meant about it healing Aries energy, because it's the observation of energetically activating in relationality and in the context of what is truly worth energetically defending, right? And when we care about things, we're able to be energetically protective of them. We understand the significance and the value of, right, the space between the space by which we work to heal, that allows us to effectively understand that there's nothing stronger than conserving strength. Because when one is conserving strength, then one understands that one has nothing to prove. So I feel like that's a lot of the energy of the masculine that's working through that, and potentially and especially even working through the context of healing or going through inner child experiences by which they're remembering a past version of self that had not yet understood that, right? The version of self that was still learning about the self rather than being present within it. Now, this is going to bring us to feminine energy. And for feminine energy right now, we are going to be reading into, we're going to be utilizing, I'm feeling inclined to use the Tarot of the Divine right now. Can I get 3 cards? 3 cards for feminine. 3 cards for feminine. Highest priority. We've got here the 7 of Cups in its upright. We also have here the Chariot card in its reversal. These cards are looking, I need to point out, these cards are looking very, very similar to what we pulled in the non-binary space a couple days ago. What's the third one? Yeah, Page of Cups. I swear, these cards, I need to go double check. These cards look very, very similar to what we pulled in the non-binary space last time we read. And I want to kind of talk about this because the thing is, and I keep on seeing this is what's happening with feminine energy. Feminine energy is moving through the context of understanding that feminine energy is more an environment, right? Feminine energy is an energetic environment. It's the environment that we create that allows feminine to be in their feminine, right? And what often happens, and I just keep on seeing this, like feminine, it's often like there's nothing more offensive to feminine than when feminine is asked to be more feminine, as if they could, right? Because when you recognize that feminine is an environment, then when feminine is not in their feminine, the question that you say is, why aren't you more feminine? It's a question that says, what am I not doing that's cultivating the environment by which you feel comfortable being within one's femininity, right? When we think about that modality of feminine being an environment, then we don't look at feminine with a sense of anger. We don't look at feminine with a sense of audacity, being like, how come you're not being more feminine for me? Right? When we understand, when we understand that, then we build into the context of saying, what can I do, right? What kind of environment that I'm creating by which feminine doesn't feel safe to be in their most resplendent form, right? Right? That's the personal responsibility that we hold towards feminine energy, right? The understanding and the recognition that feminine flourishes when they're in an environment that allows one to be within the feminine context. So we see that this is a lot of the feminine that is becoming, not being energetically unapologetic in relationality to, right, even feeling, right, and I even see this, like the feminine that often feels the disassociation with themselves when another person talks about one's femininity as if it isn't a part of the self, but more something that another expects from someone, right? Like the modality of understanding the energetic violation of that. Because here's the thing about it is, we don't owe our energy to anyone, right? Masculine doesn't owe their masculine energy to anyone. Feminine doesn't owe their feminine energy to anyone. However, feminine gets completely exhausted in the space by which others articulate not just the fact that they're giving energy, but the quality by which they're energetically receiving the energy isn't one that one feels is energetically feminine enough. Because when we recognize and understand the modality of feminine being an energetic environment, right, then we don't effectively assess the quality and condition of the feminine that we find within it, right? We cultivate and we hold sacredly that energetic landscape. So I see that that's a lot of the feminine that's articulating upon that, the landscape of femininity, right? The sacred landscape of femininity that articulates, that welcomes the energy towards it, that articulates upon the joy of being within it. And often the modality of seeing, right, when you see the world, right, when you see a hard world and you say, what happened, where has all the feminine gone? The question you should say to yourself is, what have I done? What have I done? Right? Not the feeling of energetic violation in terms of someone denying you feminine energy, but asking yourself, what have you done in the modality by which the feminine experiences you, and instead of wanting to stay, energetically runs, right? And when we think about that, when we think about the modality, or when we think of ourselves as stewards of energy, then we don't look at things with a sense of violation. We don't look at things with a sense of feeling energetically owed or demanded something. We ask ourselves, we do the hard work to interrogate ourselves, to ask ourselves why something isn't energetically present, right? Because that's what we talk about the hard work of the self, right? The ability to effectively heal relationships that is not based on saying this is what you have to do. Instead, this is what you have to change. This is what you have to amend. This is what you have to fix. And I feel like what's interesting about that is feminine is not just articulating that to masculine. I feel like that's some feminine articulating that to feminine as well. Because this often happens in the modality when feminine becomes a tight circle, right? Because a tight circle is also not feminine. The modality by which we effectively tighten is, again, the space by which we're moving into the context by which we're not building into energetic welcoming. So I feel like there's a lot of that energy that is potentially working through or experiencing that. And that conversation is one by which the feminine is working towards extending their energetic compassion, and she's not on the table, but with like a little bit of Queen of Swords energy, right? Which is the energy that articulates upon the fact that compassion must be energetically protected. Now, this brings us to the non-binary energy. And for non-binary energy right now, we're going to be utilizing, I'm feeling inclined to use the Nouveau Tarot, please. 3 cards. Woo! Ooh, I like that. Moon in its reversal. I like me a moon in its reversal, man. Ooh, yeah, I like the Four of Pentacles in its reversal too. I love those 2 cards together. five of Swords. 5 of Swords in its reversal. And here's the thing about it. You know, I just want to articulate what we're effectively seeing here because like, and I need to stress this, like there's a little bit of this non-binary energy right now, which is like I feel like it's like I gotta stress, like never in my life have I seen something sillier than when someone mistakes kindness for weakness. I'll never understand it. This is not the time to be mistaking kindness for weakness. Oh, there are so many planets. There are so many planets in Aries. There are so many planets in Aries right now. And the modality, like I can't even stress this. The modality by which energy, like the like literally just put it on someone's like, what happened to them? Oh, they mistook, oh, that person there, what happened to them? It's a shame. What did they do? They mistook kindness for weakness. Yeah, it was a real, it was a real, it was a real, it was a real, it was a real thing. A real shame, a real energetic shame there. That person that effectively confused kindness for weakness is what I keep on seeing, because a lot of that energy that we're potentially experiencing there, it has a lot to do, right? It has a lot to do with the energetic observation of what it is that we ourselves are working through. And so I keep on seeing that for a lot of the energy effectively doing that work or effectively identifying this, it's a continuation of being able to energetically observe what it is that we ourselves are effectively trying to work through. And I keep on getting the thing about this is, and I like, you know, I got to point this out, like for a lot of this energy, and I gotta stress this, like it's what it means to be energetically consistent is not about finding suitable conditions, right? Like suitable conditions. What are suitable conditions, right? There are no suitable conditions. Suitable conditions are what you do with less than suitable circumstances, right? Suitable conditions are what you do with less than suitable circumstances, right? It's that observation. It's as easy as that, right? It's that modality or that experience of working through something. And I feel like what's funny about that is like this is the energy that has never, right? Like has never experienced suitable conditions in all of their energetic experience, right? The modality by which they effectively work through things is the modality by which, like, that's what it means to work through it, right? It's not effectively the condition by which one waits for the climate to be correct. It's the space by which that is how you effectively bring energetic change to things. So I feel like there's a lot of that energy that effectively works through circumstances or experiences like that. And I keep on seeing like the modality or the circumstance by which we work through suitable conditions. Like this is a lot of the energy that identifies the fact that that's what we talk about. When you don't find suitable conditions, you streamline approaches. It's as easy as that, right? When you don't find suitable conditions, I guess it's time to streamline the approach. Continuing to get clarification, and we're moving into back into the masculine energy. We're going to be utilizing 3 cards for masculine right now, and we're going to be utilizing the tarot of the divine for the heart space of masculine. Oh my God. Oh man, I can already hear this. Got the moon card in its reverse. We got double moon card in its reversal today, guys. I'm not surprised to see it because, like, I got to point out, like, this is what we experience. Like, this is what we can expect when we've got when we've got planets in Pisces, we've got Mars, we've got Mars and Mercury that are currently in Pisces, and we've got a bunch of planets in Aries, right? Yeah, we've got the Moon card in its reversal. We've got the Queen of Swords in its reversal. And we've got the Queen of Wands in its upright. Guys, this is looking so similar. Okay, so this is wild because this spread is looking incredibly similar to what we saw on the feminine side a few days ago. Do you remember what we read for on the feminine side a few days ago, where we saw all of those queens coming out? Now all the queens are in the masculine. Now where the queens are in the masculine. Those are my friends, is what I keep on seeing, right? The modality, and I want to point this out, right? The modality by which, and I want to talk about, like, there's something happening right now in the masculine energy as it relates to what actual fragility is, right? Fragility is feeling the need to prove oneself, right? And that's the funny thing about it. Fragility is always going around. What does fragility do? What does fragility do? Fragility goes around screaming about how strong they are, right? Like the Aries, this is why we're having this conversation. Aries come here knowing this. We've got so many planets in Aries right now. This is the thing about it. Aries, like, I got to point this out. Aries is the bully's bully energy. There is nothing that an Aries hates more than a bully. And the reason why, and again, Aries have like a super sight by which they can spot a bully a mile away. And what is usually the sound that a bully makes? You want to see how strong I am? 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 Right? And there's a difference, right? There's a difference between the playful side of Aries, right? The healthy competition that is the archetype of Aries energy, which is the energy that says, like, it is a joy, like, it is a joy to meet you on the field of battle and to be able to prove our mettle, like the joy that we have in being able to share strength with one another, right? The modality by which we effectively celebrate strength versus the fragility of strength that is constantly looking for things to prove itself against. And I feel like a lot of this Aries energy is a conversation with masculine energy towards other masculine energy about what it actually means to be strong, right? And I keep on seeing something about strong, being able to identify and articulate what's energetically right and wrong, right? Because when we're energetically fragile, we don't see what's energetically right or wrong. We're too built into our ego. And what does the ego constantly say? I'm afraid. I'm afraid. Oh my God, I'm so afraid. You have to protect me. Everybody's trying to hurt me. Everybody's trying to destroy me. Please, please, the ego says, protect me, right? And the modality by which we recognize that that is the sound the ego makes is how we overcome our fear. How we overcome our fear, which is the modality by which the ego says, oh no, I'm in danger, protect me. And we say, get a grip, right? Get a grip. Get a grip. Get a grip. And that modality of doing so is how we become protective of those around the self. Because we stop seeing everyone as a threat to ourselves and say, how can I protect that even more? Right? The only way your love feels like love is if you get out of the headspace by which you're constantly feeling like you need to protect yourself at every moment. And true masculine energy understands it, and it drives masculine energy nuts to see masculine energy that articulates the fact that the masculine energy is in any kind of inherent sense of danger, as if it could be, as if it could be, as if it could be, right? But what is the masculine energy in detriment? The masculine energy in detriment is the masculine energy that is constantly screaming, save me. Right? The masculine energy that is constantly harping on about their own helplessness in the fact that the masculine energy needs to be protected. Right? That is the ego. And I feel like that's a lot of the masculine that articulates upon the fact that there's never been anything masculine about that in all of existence. Right? Meanwhile, we've got feminine, Moving back towards feminine right now, 3 cards for feminine. We're going to be utilizing the tarot of the Nouveau Tarot for heart space of feminine. Oh, lordy, lordy, lord. Can't with this energy. We've got the High Priestess in its reversal. Okay? We've got the Emperor in its upright. And we've got the Strength card in its upright. And this is a lot like listen, and then this is the thing. This is like feminine understanding that it's feminine's job to make sure everybody's acting right. And that's the thing about it. And I got to stress this. This is why feminine, right? Feminine is in the modality of understanding that the space by which we energetically stand up, right? The modality by which another stands up and says you can't do that to them, because when you do that to them, you do that to me, right? This is feminine understanding that the recognition of what we do to the weakest is the full shape of our heart. You want to see the full shape of someone's heart? You want to see the full shape of someone's heart? See what they do to the weakest person around them. You want to see the full shape of someone's heart? See what they do to the weakest person around them. That will tell you everything you need to know about the shape of another person's heart space. You don't need to go through speeches. You don't need to go through anything. You just need to energetically observe. And it is absolutely remarkable the lengths that another person will go to try to describe, right? To just try to describe the nature of their heart rather than to just energetically show it. And I keep on hearing, this is feminine energy, sick and tired of describers. This is feminine energy, sick and tired of energetic describers articulating upon the quality and nature of their heart, but departing from that in the act of acting, in the modality by which they energetically are at. Because that's what I keep on getting. That is the harping on about the heart instead of the space by which we energetically act upon it. The modality by which, when we are energetically in alignment, our actions and our words. What do you think alignment means? Alignment means our words and our actions are energetically aligned, not the modality by which we try to come towards someone and say, I'll do anything for you. And that's why feminine sees it's so dangerous that when someone says, I'll do anything, being like, you are on the brink of losing yourself. Because how could you say that you'll do anything if you are energetically aligned? If you are energetically aligned, you never say, I will do anything. You say, I will do the aligned thing. I will do the thing that needs to be energetically done. It is the modality by which we work towards that. So I feel like, again, this is a lot of that continuation of the energy moving with all of those planets in Aries, which is working through frustration, but frustration with sound reason, right? Our frustration effectively anticipates and articulates and acts as bell to be able to effectively weather through circumstances or situations. The modality and the capacity by which we are effectively able to navigate those experiences via the pathwork of our own energetic feeling. Because our feelings are, as long as our emotions have directions attached to them, they point us in the right direction. Now this brings us back towards the non-binary energy. 3 cards for the heart space of non-binary. We're going to be utilizing the Smith-Waite Centennial deck. 3 cards, please. There's a gap. Is what I keep on seeing. The best way, if you're a tarot nerd, you'll have to go look at today's spread, because the way the cards fell, literally, I've got 2. There's a void space here that we need to talk about, and we're going to talk about it here because I've got 2 cards under the moon card in its reversal. Yeah, we've got the 7 of swords in its reversal with the page of swords in its reversal, and then we've got nothing under the 4 of pentacles in its reversal, and then we've got the 2 of cups in its reversal. So let's talk a little bit about what we're seeing there. This is there's something important that I see that's happening right now for a lot of the non-binary energy, and working through the observation that nobody gets the right to tell anyone the right way to heal, right? The modality by which another person says it would be very healthy for you to do that, being like, nobody gets to tell you what healthy is but you, right? And what happens, because again, this is a lot of the energy that works through the energetic position of understanding and recognizing that healing is a personal act, And the modality by which, and I keep on hearing, suggestions, not directions, right? The modality by which when we care about each other, we suggest to each other ways to heal, we don't direct each other on how to heal. Why? Because this energy often recognizes that the shape of the trauma that they have experienced has often been someone trying to help them, right? That often the space, I see some of this energy going, let me tell you a little story about someone who was trying to help me and they hurt me profoundly, right? The modality by which another person articulates upon what is healthy for us must be subjective in terms of how we experience it. And that's why I even see like the modality by which another person, like I just, and that's what I keep on getting with this Four of Pentacles and its reversal, right? The modality by which another person tries to articulate what one has to do or what one has not to do is often the direction by which the energy says, oh, look, there's the trauma walking before me. There's the trauma walking before me that articulates the way that I should walk, right? Look at that. Oh, look at that. Look at, there it is. There goes the trauma. There goes the trauma before me that's articulating how one should walk, right? The modality by which, and this is what we understand, when we are effectively in the space by which we help each other, we help each other the way we aspire to be helped, is what I keep on seeing. We aspire, we listen to how another desires to be energetically helped. That's why we talk about the fact that love is active listening, because often the shape of trauma that comes towards us is someone being like, why won't you let me help you? Why won't you let me help you? I'm trying to help you. You should be thanking me for this. The creepiness, the absolute creepiness of another person so deep in their ego that they convince themselves that they're helping someone as another person is screaming about how much pain they're being caused by another energetic individual, right? That is literally the sound of another person being too deep in their egoic journey to hear anything sensible, right? And the modality by which the energy recognizes that experience, right? The modality by which, what does trauma always say? You'll thank me for this later, and that later never comes, right? The energy that always says, trauma always says, you'll thank me for this later, and that later never arrives, right? So that modality of experiencing that says that they work in that space of helping others be energetically aware of it, even in the space by which they navigate, right? The space that when we care about each other, we don't articulate upon what is best for one another. We ask each other what we feel is best. Continuing to get clarification, 3 cards right now, moving back into the unconscious space of masculine. We're going to be utilizing the and then this is why a lot of that energy was very conscientious as to who they allow close to them for experiences and situations of that energetic nature. Moving back into the unconscious of masculine, we're going to be utilizing the tarot of the Nouveau for the unconscious of masculine. I already know where this is going. Yeah, look at this, right? We got the Ace of Swords here. We've got the 8 of Swords here in its reversal. And let's talk about the 10 of Swords, Wands in its upright. Let's talk about how toxic crusade mentality is. Let's talk about how toxic crusade mentality is. Because toxicity is in crusading. And crusading is the modality by which you feel like you're bringing energetic healing to someone that has no desire to be healed. Never are you more deeper in your ego than when you go on an energetic crusade, because the modality by which you go on a crusade is the modality by which you feel like you are there to energetically deliver someone from their own energetic experience, and the modality by which you will never be deeper or ego than when you go on a crusade is the modality by which you feel that your energetic path work is the correct one. And this is why we talk about the modality, that when we're building into something that's energetically healthy, when we build into energetic generosity, we look at beliefs as bridges and we navigate whether we're moving towards the same values, right? We open a generous space. We make more room, right? We make more room to energetically accommodate those who share values with us. We don't knock down other people's energetic bridges, because if your bridge cannot maintain itself in the wake of others having bridges, then it's probably not a good bridge to begin with. And I feel like that's a lot of the energy that's working through that in the modality of relationship, because it's a conversation that we have as it is based upon the security that we feel within ourselves. And so that's what I see a lot of the masculine working on, right? They're building into the context of healing the self by saying, I'm working on becoming a better bridge, right? And what does it mean by working on becoming a better bridge? Not being in the modality by which another person having opinion that's different than yours knocks you down entirely, right? Never are you more energetically fragile, right? Never are you more energetically fragile than being in the modality by which something you believe could be knocked down in the context by which another person has a different belief than you. But often we see this that occurs as it relates to fragile energy, right? And that's why often fragile energy will try to go on a crusade rather than working on the self so that it doesn't feel so energetically fragile in the first place. So we see, and what's interesting about this is I literally see masculine energy, the healing energy of the masculine that's working on being a better bridge. And often the space by which we become a better bridge in our relationships is experiencing and facing the fear that makes us energetically run from things that feel like they destabilize, right? What does the ego say? I don't want to hear that, right? What does the ego say? I don't want to hear that. And there goes a good conversation. There goes the ability to energetically connect. And this is how we address the avoidance that's so energetically toxic in our relationships. Because again, it's not about saying, oh, someone's avoidant, you got to give them energetic space. No. It's not about, when you cultivate a space that caters to avoidance, you create relationships that are built upon dissatisfaction. When you cultivate relationships that cater to avoidance, all you do is cultivate relationships that feel dissatisfied, because there you've got one person who's deep in their fear running away from things, and you've got another person who's patiently waiting for them to be confident when everything they do is showing you the nature by which they do things, acting afraid, right? When we care about each other, we don't drag each other into relationship. Nor are we energetically patient and waiting for someone to find the confidence that they're not giving evidence of having. It's the modality by which we effectively articulate our space. And in the space by which we articulate it, we navigate the fact that we never feel ready for a relationship. There's no one who's ever felt ready for a relationship in your life. And if you build into, but there's constantly energy that says, I am preparing. Yeah, everybody's preparing. Like, everybody's preparing, but again, you can prepare and do in the same time, right? Acting and doing is the same exact thing. You can be doing the same thing. You can be preparing as you're doing, right? Because what happens when you start preparing and you're actively doing? You're perfecting. Preparation combined with activation is perfecting. However, there is energy that always gets caught in prepare mode, which says, I'm just not ready. I'm just not ready. Of course you're not. You're never going to be ready. Energy that says I'm just not ready is that's the condition, right? And unless another person can articulate the conditions, right? Unless another person can articulate the conditions that would bring a state of readiness, and that's not to say that there aren't sometimes, right? Someone being like, okay, wait, I'm actually waiting for certain conditions. When this, and this happen, I will be ready. Okay, that's one thing, because those are coordinates, right? Those are coordinates. Those are the modalities by which another person says, okay, no. These are the coordinates. These are the coordinates that allow one to build into the context of that. But the energy that is perpetually in a state of energetic preparation, that's the condition by which you find them, right? And it's frustrating. It's enervating to everyone around the self, because everybody's like, right? It's like, and then somebody feels like they move away from it and they're like, oh, well, I never know. Be like, yeah, you never know, because the only thing, right? The only thing that switches between a state of perpetual preparedness versus activation is understanding that perfecting is the sound of someone that is mutually preparing and doing, right? It's putting the wheels on the bus as you go. And then you get better at putting the wheels on, right? Continuing to get clarification. 3 cards, please. And I like to point this out because I feel like that's a lot of the energy, right? And I want to point this out for the healthy masculine energy that's doing this work, right? They're observing that. They're recognizing that quality and characteristic in themselves, and they're finding the energetic confidence to move forward in that fashion. While for feminine energy, 3 cards, unconscious of feminine, we're going to be utilizing the Smith-Waite Centennial deck. Okay, we're having the same thing happen. We're having the same thing happening in the non-binary space that's happening in the feminine. What's happening in the heart space of non-binary is happening in the unconscious of feminine. There's a gap in it. We've got the Strength card with the King of Cups and it's upright. Yeah. And this is the Three of Pentacles. This is feminine understanding that it's not feminine's job to heal masculine. It's not. It really isn't. What got you? What got that? That's also a crusade, right? You wanted to, like, that's also a crusade mentality, right? And this is feminine recognizing that the modality by which, right, we help each other, we equip, right? We help each other, we equip, we articulate, right? But the modality by which we work is the space by which, when we care about one another, then we effectively articulate upon creating the energetic conditions by which we can effectively succeed, right? And so this is also feminine understanding what it means to cultivate and create a compassionate environment. And the modality by which we work to cultivate and create a compassionate environment is effectively the work that we do to energetically articulate and help each other find our strong suit. And this is a lot of the feminine energy that are healing their relationships by articulating that it's not feminine's responsibility to energetically fix everything, but the modality by which the feminine energy is understanding and attenuated to the power of healthy environment is because feminine understands that feminine is a landscape. And when we think about the feminine energy as a landscape, then when something is not thriving, the question that we say to ourselves is not what's wrong with it, but why, what do we need to modify in relationality to the conditions around it, right? And the thing about it that's difficult, and this is what we understand about the landscape of femininity, which is the modality by which sometimes, right, all you can do is create that positive landscape. You create that positive landscape, and then some energy, what another person does with a positive landscape tells you everything you need to know about their manifestation goals, right? The modality, because, right, and you'll notice this when feminine says, here I am cultivating a positive landscape, right? The energy that's ready will say, thank you. Oh my gosh, I deeply appreciate you cultivating the landscape for me. Let me energetically show you what I can do with it, right? However, there's some energy that'll say, you know what, it's still not perfect. No, you know, this landscape, I know that you perfected the landscape, but you know what? I was looking at the landscape. And, you know, like, here's the thing. There's just like, I can't still, because you see, there's just this thing, right? The constant, the nitpicking of energy that doesn't truly want to do something, that even when you work to perfect the landscape by which they can, will always find something. Well, just one more thing, right? That tiny accommodation that tells you everything you need to know in relationality to where another person's heart truly wants to go, versus the modality and condition of another person who's experiencing a lack of energetic confidence or working through the energetic hurdle. And so this is a lot of the energy that is working through the fact that their love is a landscape, right? And when you apply love to things, what another person does in the landscape of your love tells you everything you need to know about the shape of their heart space. And that's not feminine. And if someone else does not meet you with the same sense of care and appreciation, that is not a failure on feminine's part. because it's not feminine's responsibility to fix others' heart spaces. It's feminine's responsibility to navigate the quality of those spaces. While for non-binary energy right now, 3 cards, bottom, and we'll be utilizing the Tarot of the Divine. What do I got here? 2, 3. We've got the 4 of Coins in its upright. We've got the Star card in its upright. And we have the 4 of Cups in its upright. A lot of 4 energy right now in the unconscious of the non-binary energy. I like to see 4. I like seeing 4s in the unconscious space, because here's the thing about it. 4s in the unconscious space means someone doing their shadow work effectively. That's what I keep on seeing. 4s in the heart space is working into the context of being able to recognize and identify, like, this is stable energy that it works very hard in doing their shadow work. Someone being like, I do my shadow work first. I wake up every day, a little shadow work. And what do we mean by shadow work? It's working through the context of what we energetically avoid. The aversions with the self, the parts of the self we hate, right? The space by which we love ourselves is the space by which we look at those parts first. And the reason we look at those parts first is because when we can face the parts of ourselves we hate, we say, that's the part I need to love more. That's that right there, that part of the self. That part of the self that makes one feel, do you really think you should be here? Right? All of those energetic experiences, all of the energy by which we feel others' projections or broadcasts in terms of trying to say, I would really prefer if you weren't. Right? That is the energy that articulates upon the nature of the love that we bring to things, because it's building into being in love with things is being energetically present, even when it's difficult, even when it's not energetically present, right? The ability to energetically persist is the space by which we articulate the fact that we have an energetic right to. And that's the hardest thing, particularly for a lot of this energy, because the modality by which others often broadcast their own uncomfortability projected on the self, the modality by which you recognize the full force of another's projection being experienced as perpetual rejection, right? The modality by which another person broadcasts their insecure projections as it relates to micro rejections, right? Perpetual micro rejections that often feel like they wear away on one's own heart space. This is the energy that rebuilds that part of themselves every single day. And the reason that they effectively do that is because that is the shape and nature of love, right? Love is sandcastle energy. Love is the energy that says, I don't care how you feel about it. It's something that is there. It is something that is present. And that perpetual act of building back towards it, right? Some days you get far, some days it feels like it moves away, but every day you apply that energetic force. That is the shape and condition and the power of love, because that is the love that we articulate that allows us to be steadfast, even in the midst of others' misperceptions, even in the midst of others' false projections, because that is the energy that says that what we do isn't conditional. It's not conditional. It is not conditional, because love is not about conditions. Love is energetically perpetual. And so that is a lot of the energy that says, how can I be more perpetual in what I care about? Because that is the energy that understands that the perpetuity that we put to the things that we do is our love letter to the universe. It is the modality by which we say, it doesn't matter the condition by which we receive. It matters upon how we energetically arrive. Bottom of the deck on this reading, masculine energy. 10 of coins in its reversal. I feel like a lot of that energy working through those experiences or circumstances. I've got a lot of this energy that's literally working through the anger directed towards the self, right? Because, and I want to point this out, this is a lot of the energy that understands anger doesn't heal. Explanation does. The ability and the capacity to be able to articulate to another the significance and importance of things is not the space by which we recriminate, right? Recrimination does not allow for energetic healing in any modality. When we recriminate, we allow the capacity for change to occur, is what I keep on seeing. And that applies to the self as well. That applies to the self as well, right? Recrimination allows for no healing. And I want to point this out, with a lot of these planets in Aries, kind of feels like recrimination central. Okay, like there could be, this is not the time. This is not the time to be speaking in like perpetual expletives like never or this or that, right? It's working into, right? It's working into what's energetically important and the ability to allow another person to say. And what do we mean by recrimination? Recrimination means that when somebody says, I made a mistake, we open our arms to them. We don't cast them out. I'm going to say that again. What is the sound of healing? Recrimination, okay? The way that we avoid recrimination is the modality by which another person says, I made a mistake. We open our arms to them. We don't cast them out, because that is the only way by which anything ever has the possibility to heal. And that doesn't mean, right? That doesn't mean you have to hold someone too close, right? We talk about this here. If someone comes into the space by which they apologize, it doesn't mean that they get to occupy the same space that they held with you, right? But the modality by which one is able to allow the healing to begin is the modality by which you welcome it, instead of pushing another person away further in the act of seeing someone literally evolving before your eyes, right? When somebody is literally evolving before your eyes, you don't push them away. You don't need to embrace them. You can hold steady in gazing, because that gaze is the ability to say, I am here and present for your changing, right? While for feminine energy, bottom of the deck, and we're using the Smith-Waite Centennial deck, 10 of Swords in its upright. And the 10 of Swords in its upright has to do with owning anger. I love seeing a 10 of Swords in its upright, but it's a little bit harder for feminine because feminine has a lot of history in being upset for a reason and another person calling them hysterical, right? Because the sound, weaponized negligence, okay? Weaponized negligence is another person ignoring when you ask quietly, ignoring when you ask steadily, ignoring when you get a little louder, and then only when you're screaming does someone turn around in audacity and say, oh my God, why are you hysterical, right? And the modality by which feminine recognizes that when feminine is a landscape, that when energy cares about feminine, it does not require the feminine to scream in order to get their needs met. Because the modality by which the feminine has started to scream, the feminine has exited, all femininity has exited the building. Because that is the feminine that feels the need to have to energetically defend the self. So feminine stops becoming a healthy, positive landscape and has to become an energetic war zone. And that's the feminine that says, I would rather prefer not to do that, but has the capacity of doing so if energetically necessary. So this is a lot of the feminine that owns the power of their energetic voice, because it is the voice that says, if I'm speaking loudly, then you need to ask yourself, where were you when this voice was lower? What were you doing when this voice was at a reasonable energetic level? Continuing to get clarification For a lot of the energy in the non-binary space, we're going to be utilizing the, where'd you go? The Nouveau Tarot, bottom of the deck. We've got here Page of Swords in its reversal. Page of Swords in its reversal. It's when you can't please anyone, there's always someone you can please. There's always someone who loves you profoundly. When you can't please anyone, there is always someone who you can find that loves you tremendously. And you got to be on really good terms with that person. You got to be on really good terms with that person. You got to love that person back with every single ounce of care, and that is not selfish. That is self-sustaining. That is the modality by which we hold ourselves in that modality, because that is the love, right? That is the perpetual love that we give to ourselves as we're energetically working every day to make something better. And there is no greater endeavor than to live every day trying to make something better in whatever small way. In whatever small way you can do that. That ability to be able to recognize and say at the end of the day, maybe not a great deal. Maybe not everything, but I move something, right? I move something a little bit further in the right direction. There is no better blessing. There is no better blessing than you can give this world than at the end of the day to say, I moved it. And it might have been an inch, it might have been a centimeter, but that was my inch, because that inch is blessed. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and receiving it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my site. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for that reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for private reading. I'll never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my site, so I would encourage you to do it there. A couple of updates before we move into personal readings today. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who participated in our recent tarot class. Our next tarot class is tomorrow. If you would like to become a part of that tarot class, all you need to do is head on over to my stack and become a paid subscriber. Your paid subscription to my stack is your ticket of entry into our live classes each and every month. As a paid subscriber, you will also have access to over 9 hours worth of material in the Tarot Church Library Class Archive. Now, it's not necessary to catch up. I'll be doing my best to give you an update on everything we've studied prior to beginning that next class, but the material is there for you to receive as you're ready to receive it. And if you become a founding member to my stack, not only will you receive a discount on the full year's worth of readings, but you will also have access to over 20 hours worth of material in the Tarot Church Library Class Archive, as well as the opportunity of receiving a complimentary one-on-one mentorship class with me, where I will meet with you personally to assess where you are on your own personal tarot journey and give you the best insights in terms of how to utilize those classes to the best of your advantage moving towards your tarot goals going forward. One of the things I tried to do in these classes was make them accessible to the absolute novice tarot reader as well as the seasoned reader. There's definitely something there for everyone. Don't let your lack of experience or your robust experience prevent you from joining us in these classes. And even if you don't become a paid subscriber to my stack, I would encourage you to follow me there to stay up to date on any new offerings or services. I also post my weekly newsletter there, which will let you know about my in-person events as well as my online live schedule, as well as my mystic meditation articles. I just wrote one recently on navigating this new moon that we just experienced. Finally, I want to let you guys know that on top of my standard life path readings, I also offer mentorship classes. These are for any of my students seeking a more personalized educational experience with me. I take a very limited number of students for this reason, as those classes are focused on each individual's personal spiritual goals and journey work. Those classes can be purchased on an individual level or as a monthly class series, weekly or bi-weekly as your schedule permits. Also, for my students seeking more consistent weekly tarot support, I'm very happy to offer weekly tarot insight packages. That is a package of 4 30-minute readings, again, weekly or bi-weekly as your schedule permits, so that you can stay more consistent on your personal journey. I'm also very happy to offer dream interpretation readings, which can be purchased per dream or as a series. If you purchase a series, I would encourage you to start to keep a dream journal, as we will meet weekly or bi-weekly with that journal and utilize the tarot to understand the key themes and messages coming towards you in the dream space. I want to thank you guys so much for being here today and sharing in these messages, and we will do this again tomorrow.